Welcome, everyone. I'm Rabbi Beth Singer. Together with Rabbi Jonathan Singer, we are the senior rabbis at Congregation Emanu-El, and we are delighted to be joined today by our emeritus rabbi, Rabbi Stephen Pierce. We are thrilled that you are here. In fact, I ask you to take this moment. Pull yourself away from any other thoughts of before or after, and just look around for a moment. Take a look at what I'm seeing, and think about this Shehechianu moment right now. Think about this very moment in time and place that brings together Jews, Christians, people of all faiths, people of no faiths. We gather in this 168-year-old historic synagogue. We just celebrated the miracle of Israel's 70th. Over 1,000 of us freely chose to attend this event today. We are celebrating 40 years of the University of San Francisco Swig Jewish Studies and Social Justice Program. The words of Shehechianu, V'kiyamanu, V'higianu can be translated with the words to a song of a very popular Broadway musical, How Lucky We Are to Be Alive Right Now. We owe a debt of gratitude to the Swig Program for opening up today's very special program to all the members of the community. Thank you, Sissy, and family, for all that you do for this community. We are deeply honored to welcome our colleague and friend, Father Paul Fitzgerald, President of USF. With all the divisiveness in our country today, think with me about the power of the symbol and the reality of our faiths coming together for the common good. This is no small thing, and we thank you, Father Fitzgerald, for your holy work in bringing us together. Now, I imagine that whenever today's guest, Jake Tapper, comes to the Bay Area, people kind of walk up to him and say, "Wow, what an honor to meet you, Mr. Tapper. Are you Aaron Hahn Tapper's brother?" Locally, we have our own rock star Tapper. And Aaron, we welcome you today. Thank you for the incredible work you do teaching Judaism and Jewish ideas to tomorrow's civic leaders. And finally, our heartfelt thanks to Rabbi Lee Beisel. As most of you are aware, none of this would have happened without Lee's prodigious organizational skills, enthusiasm, and passion to be sure that this 40th anniversary partnership would be well celebrated. So let's celebrate. It is my honor to call forward Ken Swig.
It's my privilege and honor to be here today to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Swig Program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice at USF, which was founded by my father, Mel Swig, along with the leadership of Rabbi David Davis, also known as Rab to those who love him, and with the generous financial support of among my father's closest friends, including Gene Friend, Bob Sinton, Richard and Rhoda Goldman, Barney Osher, with whom I was with yesterday morning, Phyllis Cook, and Walter Shorenstein. Also, to be acknowledged for his inspirational leadership is the late Reverend John Loschiavo, who led USF when the Swig Program was created and understood the importance of this undertaking. In addition, I also want to thank Professor Aaron Tapper and Lee Beisel. Thank you very much for your kindness, your efforts, and all of your leadership to make this event happen today. This 40th anniversary of the Swig Program also coincides with the 25th anniversary of my father's yahrzeit, which occurred this past March 14th. So it seems a very appropriate time to take a moment and reflect upon the Swig program and its founder, Mel Swig. Many people have asked why my father, a dedicated Jewish man and unwavering Zionist, would conceive of and create a chair at USF in Judaic Studies, a Jesuit university. And this is indeed a good question. For me, the answer is very clear. My father's motivation so much reflected who he was as a person and his deepest guiding principles, as well as his vision to see beyond the predictable and the acceptable norm. Accordingly, the Swig program was founded and encompassed his passions and beliefs. My father was deeply influenced by and was proud of being Jewish. My father loved the state of Israel. My father adored his city of San Francisco. And my father was a huge advocate of education and endeavored to make it available to all. My father steadfastly believed that all people are created equal, and consequently, he viewed his fellow person from the inside and not the outside. And my father preached tolerance and understanding and acceptance for all humankind. Thus, the Swig program, from its inception, has represented the active engagement of all people to teach and to share everyone with the history and thoughts and essence of the Jewish people. In the past decade, by adding the discipline of social justice, the Swig program has shaped a vision that is inclusive of all human beings and creating a just world. And in the Jewish tradition, we often teach and repeat these words from the Torah. Remember that you were once strangers in the land of Egypt. This mitzvah, or commandment, is the most repeated commandment in the Torah. And it goes even further in Leviticus when we are directed to love him, the stranger, as ourselves. We are commanded to be understanding and accepting and to identify with the stranger through our ability to empathize with him. So we, as Jews, are commanded by God to support and to love the stranger. Because we have firsthand knowledge and understanding of what it is like to be a stranger, we're particularly positioned to lead by example. And the irony is, by our acceptance and our help to the Jesuit community and USF and others through programs like this one at USF, we are actually helping to fulfill our very core wishes and ideals that we as Jews are accepted and tolerated and understood by all peoples of the world. And this is what we all together want for all people. And so the Jewish program stands as a beacon to all those who support and participate in it and seek to shape a more just and humane world. Thank you very much.
Wow. Welcome, everyone, to the 40th anniversary and celebration of the University of San Francisco Swig Program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice, where tonight, this afternoon, we'll hear from my brother in a talk titled Speaking Truth to Power. My name's Aaron Hahn Tapper, and it's truly my honor and privilege to direct this cutting-edge program. Let me begin by thanking a number of people for their incredible support, without whom we would not have been able to get to this day. Sound like it's my bar mitzvah. Thank you to Congregation Emanu-El for hosting us. More specifically, thank you to Rabbi Beth Singer, Rabbi Jonathan Singer, Rabbi Sidney Mintz, Rabbi Carla Fenves. Thank you to the Emanu-El facilities staff. Thank you to the USF administration for supporting not just this program, but also this event. In particular, our university's president, Father Fitzgerald, Provost Don Heller, Dean Marcelo Camperi, Dean Eileen Fung. Thank you to the USF Office of Marketing Communications, Development, Department of Theology and Religious Studies, Thank you to the Jewish Studies and Social Justice Program faculty. Thank you to Allison Cunningham, Monica Doblado, and our many student volunteers. And most importantly, thank you to Rabbi Lee Beisel, JSSJ faculty member, chair of the 40th anniversary event. To say that Lee has shown a true dedication to this program the last few months, let alone the last 5 years, would be an enormous understatement. His work has been extraordinary. Thank you, Lee, for your guidance, mentorship, collegiality, and friendship. And thank you for your amazing commitment to the program and me. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a brief moment to tell you about our Swig program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice. Hopefully each of you received a booklet that describes our work in greater detail, but here's the contracted version. In 1977, Melvin Swig and several friends saw the need to establish a Jewish Studies program in the San Francisco Bay Area. The University of San Francisco, a premier Jesuit Catholic institution of higher learning, for them was the natural home. Not only was this the first endowed chair of Jewish Studies or the first Jewish Studies program at a college or university in the Bay Area, but Swig and USF actually broke ground on a global scale. It's the first Jewish Studies chair or program at a Catholic university anywhere on the planet Earth. The founding program director, the first individual to hold the chair, was Rabbi David Davis, who's honored us by coming today with his family. In 1997, the history department's Andrew Hines took over, and in 2007, I became the third person to direct the program. In 2008, we relaunched the program as the Swig Program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice. Once again, USF broke historical ground, this time in becoming the first academic program worldwide to formally link Jewish studies with social justice. Including a minor in this field, in the classroom, our program offers a wide range of significant Jewish studies courses not found in other educational settings, as well as an annual intensive Hebrew language summer program called Hebrew San Francisco. This summer is our 21st consecutive summer. We have a minor in Jewish Studies and Social Justice, offering an array of courses such as social justice, activism, and Jews, the Jewish American experience through graphic novels, forgiving the unforgivable, Jews, Judaism's Jewish identities, refugees and justice, funny Jews, queering religion, and many more. Over the last 40 years, literally tens of thousands of students have taken our Jewish Studies courses. Hundreds are enrolled each year. This past year in particular, we broke 1,000 students. Beyond the classroom, the JSSJ program offers extraordinary events that are free and open to the public, which thousands have attended. We focus our events around the topics of Israel and Palestine, Holocaust and genocide studies, and we have 4 annual events. Each fall, we have a speaker series focused on Jewish identities, highlighting the rich diversity of Jews in terms of ethnicity, gender, national sensibilities, sex, sexual orientation, race, and a number of other social identities. Each fall, we also offer an annual human rights lecture, first launched 3 years ago when we brought to campus Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire, the head of the United Nations military in Rwanda, who refused orders to evacuate the East African nation when genocide began. Each spring, we have an annual social justice lecture and an annual social justice Passover Seder, dealing with events such as poverty in Haiti, genocide in Chad, the Sudan, and the Congo, gender justice, and more. There are many ways to change the world for the better, a multitude of pieces to the puzzle regarding what each one of us can do to help move and transform the world into its potential. Tikkun Olam in the Jewish tradition. Through the Swig JSSJ program, we believe that education is the best long-term way to create systemic change. Whether one has the time to take a semester-long course or a mere few hours to hear from a single speaker, education is fundamental to making our world better, paramount in shining the spotlight on the margins, on oppressed communities who are mistreated merely because of their race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or another social identity. Education. Now to begin tonight's program officially. That was the unofficial part. The Hebrew Bible tells sacred stories about a long list of humans who make mistakes. Right out of the gate, the first humans in existence, Adam and Eve, break the only rule they're given in the Garden of Eden. After breaking this rule, eating a fruit from a certain tree, and hiding from God, God asks Adam, Ayeka. Literally, this means, where are you? But God obviously knew where Adam was. A couple chapters prior, God created the world. Adam goes on to blame Eve for breaking the rules. Eve goes on to blaming the serpent. Fast forward 10 generations. Noah. When God tells Noah that God plans on destroying all of humankind, Noah doesn't object. Instead, Noah builds a massive ship to save a small group of people and animals. Noah accepts God's decree about murdering most of all humankind, seemingly without flinching. 10 more generations pass between Noah and Abraham. And when God tells Abraham that God is going to destroy the people in 2 specific cities, Sodom and Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham immediately objects. Abraham challenges God. There's a lot of pieces to this story that are fascinating, but to pause on one idea, Abraham challenges God. A simple human challenges the creator of the universe. Arguably, there's no greater biblical example of speaking truth to power. In this act, Abraham exemplifies a deep responsibility for other people. But the question of whether or not each one of us is responsible to our fellow humans is not a mere biblical story. It's not a mere theoretical question. It plays out in each of our lives every day of the year. The person living on a San Francisco street, asking for food or money, who we all too often pretend not to notice. The stories we read in the daily newspaper or see on Facebook or other social media about unjust things happening in our city, state, country, or somewhere else. All of these instances of injustice are interconnected. All of these daily occurrences are undergirded by the idea of intersectionality, the notion that all forms of oppression, all forms of destruction are interconnected. Judging a sister by the color of their skin is akin to judging a brother by his sexual orientation. Mistreating a woman because of her ethnicity is akin to mistreating a brother because of his nationality. As the institution of the University of San Francisco, and in the Swig Program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice, we maintain that we have a responsibility to do more, to get in the game, to roll up our sleeves and work to make the world a better place. Whether a student or a professor, activist, organizer, 20-something or 90-something, each one of us has a role to play in taking responsibility for improving our world, for working to transform the what is into the what can be. USF's slogan is "Change the world from here." One component of changing the world from here, no doubt, is generating public awareness about issues, and in this process, speaking truth to power, which leads me to tonight's esteemed speaker. You like that segue? It's not often that one gets to introduce someone like Jake Tapper. It's even less common to introduce someone who you've known literally your entire life. As most of you know, I'm Jacob's baby brother, but I'm much larger than him. And yes, some of us from the old school call him Jacob, not Jake. Jacob and I are very close. He was the best man at my wedding. I was the best man at his. Our kids and family commonly spend holidays together, travel with one another on vacations. I know him very well. When I watch my brother interviewing congressmen and congresswomen, pundits, or even a sitting president of the United States, I can tell what my brother's thinking based on his micro movements. By looking at his facial expressions, I know what's going through his head. Of course, sometimes his facial expressions are so honest that everyone knows what he's thinking. I can certainly think of a few times from the past year and a half where someone he was interviewing responded saying something I would call, he wouldn't, preposterous. Some of these moments have become viral memes. We'll leave that to another speech. My brother asks every interviewee questions from the same place. No matter the individual's identities or backgrounds, his goal is to bring the interviewee to a place of answering basic questions. What I've never spoken about publicly, however, and now will share with 1,600 of my best friends, in a cogent, well thought out way is what I think about what he does, what I think about his career as a journalist. I'm constantly in awe, and at the same time, I'm not. Let me explain. I've known longer than my brother has, much longer, that he would become renowned in whatever professional field he went into. He's incredibly talented, he's wicked smart, well-read, especially in things related to U.S. politics and pop culture, a committed worker, writes as much as anyone I know, has an amazing memory, and is a great artist. He has 3 nonfiction books under his belt, the most recent one, The Outpost, which went on to be a bestseller and is now being made into a Hollywood movie. His 4th book, a work of historical fiction called The Hellfire Club, officially comes out this Tuesday. My knowing he would go on to amazing and important things wasn't merely the starry-eyedness of a younger sibling looking up to an older family member. He's always had something more, been something more, perhaps one of those intangible things that can't be articulated into words. So when I say I'm in awe and not in awe, I certainly don't mean it as a dig. I mean it in the best of ways. What he does professionally and personally in the world has great impact. He takes his job incredibly seriously, and his daily interactions with powerful people, these days primarily those in the U.S. government, is beyond words and importance in this day and age. Jacob will always be my brother. I can celebrate his rise in so many different and significant parts of American society, while also knowing I have stories beyond compare about trouble we got into as kids. Before passing him the proverbial baton, I want to thank my brother for coming out here this weekend. Given his incredible work schedule, Monday through Friday, daily show, The Lead, a weekly show every Sunday's State of the Union, and he does live on the other side of the country, his donating his time and energy to support me in the Swig JSSJ program is not a small thing. Jacob, thank you for being my literal and symbolic brother, now entering our 5th decade together. You're a quintessential big brother. More important in this space, you're renowned for speaking truth to power, no matter the truth or the power. For this, I respect you more than words. Please join me in welcoming, notwithstanding my life partner, Lori, my best friend, brother, and award-winning CNN journalist, Jake Tapper.
Thank you, Aaron. There's no teleprompter here, so I have to put my glasses on. I want to thank Rabbi Singer and Rabbi Singer, Kent and the rest of the Swig family, Rabbi Bicel, Father Fitzgerald, and of course my brother. Thank you so much for having me. Before I forget, where are the Golden family, Amanda Golden's parents? Right there. Your daughter works for me. She's awesome. Nice work. Well done. I said to them privately, and I'll say it publicly, I have a 10-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, and if they end up as good as Amanda ended up, I will be very lucky. So you should be very, very proud. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. Speaking of bar mitzvahs, this is actually literally the 36th anniversary of my bar mitzvah. And Rabbi Singer told me that the Torah portion, Tazria Matzorah, which is a double portion, which means nothing to you, probably, but it's kind of a boring portion, but was read yesterday, and 36 has a mystical meaning in Judaism, so it's weird that this is the 5th, and I'm in a pulpit again, and this speech might be more provocative than the one I gave 36 years ago. I'm guessing it will. I don't recall too many complaints. So, pardon the glasses. My brother asked me to give a speech about speaking truth to power. And let me start by saying, I don't think necessarily I'm a particularly great example of speaking truth to power. I think I do an okay job. But I also, in my job, have to balance the job of speaking truth to power with other considerations I have in my job, such as being able to book guests and seeking information and trying to get lawmakers to break news. There are journalists out there who do nothing but speak truth to power and do it much better than I do. I think I more cover truth with power, or to power, I guess, a little. And I try to allow a fair debate over that while also holding people's feet to the fire as to what empirical facts are, which I have to do more and more each day, unfortunately. But that's not as catchy as speaking truth to power. But we went with speaking truth to power as a title. Assuming that I do on occasion speak some truth to power, as is the subject of this talk and as my neutral, objective, and unbiased brother believes I do, I want to take a second just to contemplate in front of this learned crowd just what that means. What is speaking truth? Does speaking truth mean, and I'm not being sarcastic when I say this, does it mean railing against an oppressive patriarchy? What about the truth that doesn't fit into that box? What about the truth that, say, a conservative in West Virginia might experience? What about the truth of somebody who thinks that the media and academic worlds look down on them and deride them and their values? We all have our own truths. And we all have our own concepts of what power is, for that matter. What is power? There are those who believe that only white men have power in American society today, and focusing on anyone other than white men is a distraction from the country's true problems. Even within that paradigm, which, to be clear, I don't accept, but within that paradigm, there are those who say that if I point out the racism or anti-Semitism of David Duke, that it does nothing more than to elevate David Duke, since his following is so small and media exposure implies a level of power and influence that he does not possess. I hear that when I cover him. Or I also hear it when I cover the anti-Semitism and misogyny and anti-LGBTQ views of Louis Farrakhan, who has one fraction of the power of President Trump, for example. Why focus on Louis Farrakhan at all? And my point is that the notion of speaking truth to power is fraught with subjectivity. When actor and comedian Jim Carrey paints an unflattering portrait of White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders and tweets it out, is he speaking truth to power? Or is he punching down? Is he bullying Sarah Sanders? He's more famous than she is. He's wealthier than she is. He's independently powerful, while her power is derived from a podium behind which she speaks. When her father, former Governor Mike Huckabee, attacks Jim Carrey in response, there's no doubt in my mind that he thinks he's speaking truth to power. Even right now, the power dynamic that we have, who's powerful? I could argue that I'm the powerful one. I could decry you, and I'm the guest speaker. I have the microphone. It's not nice. And yet, in another sense, the crowd has power. It's an educated crowd. Likely, some of you are affluent. Some might feel that me speaking truth to power to this crowd could be something. What if I shared some information that maybe you didn't come here to hear? What if I said something about Hillary Clinton when she went to India last month? And talking about how her rival got elected, she noted some of the economic anxiety issues that many Americans are experiencing, quote, a sense of being left behind in a fast-changing economy, the overhang from the financial crisis. And then she said, quote, if you remember, Trump started his campaign attacking immigrants because he knew that in many parts of the country, and let me just hasten to add, in many parts of the country where there aren't very many immigrants, he was able to scapegoat immigrants. Like, if you have problems, you're not happy with your job, you don't think you've gotten enough advancement, you're working for a woman now, you don't like it, whatever the reason was. He, Trump, stirred that up. An anti-immigrant feeling became so virulent thanks to his rhetoric that it was a big motivator in a lot of the votes in certain parts of the country. Hillary Clinton went on to say, if you look at the map of the United States, there's all that red in the middle where Trump won. I won the coasts. I won Illinois and Minnesota, places like that, but what the map doesn't show you is that I won the places that represent 2/3 of America's gross domestic product. So I won the places that are optimistic, diverse, dynamic, moving forward, And his whole campaign, Make America Great Again, was looking backwards. You know, you didn't like black people getting rights, you don't like women getting jobs, you don't want to see that Indian Americans succeeding more than you are. Whatever your problem is, I'm going to solve it, unquote. So assuming that you're the powerful one in this dynamic we have going on right now, and based on statistics, some of you voted for Hillary Clinton. A few. Let me just say that empirically, that statement is remarkably insulting of tens of millions of Americans, especially for someone who ran to be president of the United States of America, not just the part that represents 2/3 of America's gross domestic product. Yes, part of President Trump's appeal exploited various bigotries, including xenophobia, but to suggest that that alone is why Donald Trump is the president, to me, strikes me as unfair and inaccurate and disdainful of tens of millions of Americans who do not deserve to be belittled as bigots. Yes, there are bigots among the president's supporters. I hear from them quite frequently on Twitter. But 63 million? Think about it for a second. Did 200 counties in the United States of America go from voting for President Obama twice to voting for Donald Trump because they suddenly had some horrific racist epiphany? 200 counties? Or is it possible that there were a number of very complicated reasons why President Trump won? And let's just put aside the popular vote thing for a second. Tough to do in California. Including, as we saw in a recent study by the US Elections Project that came out the same day as that Hillary Clinton speech in India News, the fact that 4.4 million Americans who voted for Obama in 2012 stayed home in 2016, and more than a third of them were African American. And why did they stay home? Exploring that would mean a speech about Hillary Clinton's flaws and her campaign's mistakes and James Comey's decisions and Russia election interference, and that's a separate speech for a separate day. But I wanted to raise this because Hillary Clinton, in a room full of Indians, she was in Mumbai, talking about the anti-Indian bigotry that allowed Donald Trump to become president, is not speaking truth to power. What might have been speaking truth to power is if she had told all those assembled that Indian society needs to do much more to help women and girls and to end the horrific rape culture in India. And I'll be honest, I don't know if she raised those subjects or not. Perhaps she did. I hope she did. She certainly has been very outspoken on women's rights throughout the world. Each of us in journalism right now is trying to decide for ourselves how to handle the Trump era and try to handle what speaking truth to power is. Now, sadly, we're now in a world where some in the media, facts are not even necessarily a part of the concept of truth when they speak truth to power. I regularly see errors not only born of misunderstandings and honest mistakes, which I have certainly been guilty of myself, but an indifference to any notion of empirical fact because of the higher priority given to promoting narratives, larger narratives. For example, there's one channel that you might have heard of in which there are people who want to promote the idea that the entire Russia investigation is a farce, and Vietnam veteran and widely respected former FBI Director Robert Mueller is a political hack, even though he's a Republican. He's somehow a Democratic political hack. And that Donald Trump and his team have been cleared of all charges relating to anything having to do with the election interference of 2016. There's another channel where they've all been convicted already. Let me give you one example that I haven't talked about publicly of how different concepts of speaking truth to power might bang up against one another. After the horrific school shooting in Parkland, Florida, earlier this year, I was contacted by a member of the community who asked if CNN would be interested in holding a town hall to let the students and the faculty and the parents of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School come together to discuss what happened, to try to talk about possible solutions, and to speak truth to power, to voice their frustrations to public officials, to whatever public officials were willing to attend. And many were invited and did not attend, and I give credit to the ones who did, especially the ones who knew they were not walking into Rubio country, for example. One note here on producing a town hall. There needs to be some control. So there's a variety of questions on a number of topics. In this case, we wanted topics not just guns. We wanted to talk about guns, but also money in politics, mental health, arming teachers, police responding, hardening targets. We wanted to also try to make sure that anyone who lost a family member got to ask a question. If we hadn't done any production at the town hall, if we just let people line up at the microphone, there would have been people who lost family members who didn't get to ask a question. And based on the submissions we received, those who asked questions would have likely only been asking questions about Marco Rubio and only been asking about guns. It didn't work out that way. We had a variety of questions. And it was a very raw room. I've only experienced anything like it before in the United States after Columbine when I went to Denver, when I flew into Denver, and you could feel the grief. That's what it was like walking into Marjory Stoneman in that auditorium. You could feel the grief. It was raw. And if you watched the town hall, the crowd was tough. I think many conservatives were genuinely upset about the town hall. I think attendees at the town hall were angry, understandably. It was 1 week after the massacre, and even if it had been a year or 10 years, there were people there who had lost friends and daughters and sons. People were angry, and they said things that normally they would not say to a senator. And to be honest, normally as a moderator, I probably wouldn't have tolerated it in other circumstances. But I was not inclined to reprimand a student who just saw something horrible happen to a classmate or a father who lost his daughter. I wasn't about to interrupt them and tell them to be more polite to the senator. And I think most viewers understood that. I hope most viewers understood that. But a lot of conservatives did not. And I can't fault them for being mad about it. But I do fault those who, in their coverage of our town hall, twisted the facts and tried to make it so we were doing something that we weren't. What I was trying to do was let this community grieve and let this community speak truth to power. And to them, Marco Rubio or Dana Loesch from the NRA were power. We invited the governor, Rick Scott. We invited President Trump. We invited the Republican Speaker of the Florida House. We invited the Republican President of the Florida Senate. They did not show up. But Marco Rubio and Dana Loesch showed up, and they got a lot of grief from the crowd. That, to me, was the purest form of speaking truth to power that I've seen. There seems to be a trend that we see too often in our culture today as we all increasingly silo ourselves off into a world of like-minded media and friends and opinions. The lack of desire to even try to understand why someone believes something that you do not. I see it too often on TV, on the left and the right. We all very quickly assume and project beliefs and motivations. Many of the people who attacked our town hall for being unruly or hostile to their view of the Second Amendment, that was their version of speaking truth to power. And I don't object to it in principle at all. They think that the media is largely liberal and hostile to their point of view, and they think that they're just humble voices speaking truth to the power that is me. Some of the ways they attacked the town hall or me were not true, and I don't think that you can speak truth to power if you're not speaking truth, if you're speaking lies. But their frustration is just as valid as anyone else's. On Saturday, of this week, I'm going to be attending the White House Correspondents Association dinner. I will be honored, along with 3 other CNN colleagues, Carl Bernstein, Evan Perez, and Jim Sciutto, for a story that we reported in January 2017, just before the Trump inauguration. We were the first to report that the U.S. intelligence chiefs had briefed President Obama and then President-elect Trump on the existence of a dossier that perhaps you've heard about. One put together by a former British spy that claimed that the Russians said that they had compromising information about President-elect Trump at the time. We didn't repeat any of the information in the dossier since it remained uncorroborated at the time, but we noted that the intelligence chiefs thought the dossier serious enough that they briefed the president and his soon-to-be replacement about its existence. Now, up until that point in the history of the United States, as far as I can tell, the term fake news actually applied to fake news. It was a reference to stories that were deliberately false. One example, one that President Trump's first national security advisor, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, tweeted out on November 2nd, 2016. Quote, "You," spelled you, you decide, NYPD blows whistle on new Hillary emails, money laundering, sex crimes with children, etc., all caps must read, providing a link to an anonymously sourced article from a website that is insane. That was your national security advisor for a little bit there. Congratulations. And he later linked to a tweet from a user who no longer exists that took an image of then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton wearing a hijab during an official visit to Pakistan and claimed it was Clinton wearing hijab in solidarity with Islamic terrorists. Mike Flynn retweeted a story that suggested if Clinton were to win the election, Christianity would be prohibited. You'd be interested in that, Father. Prohibited under the United Nations Rio Declaration on Environment and Development. Now that's fake news. But I believe that the very first time President Trump used the term fake news is when he attacked CNN and our story, a story that we're going to be receiving the Merriman Smith Memorial Award for breaking news for reporting on Saturday. You don't have to, no. Thank you. My point is just it was a true story. That's all I meant. Was our reporting that story speaking truth to power? I don't know. It was reporting truth, and power sure didn't like it. And they attacked it using a term that has now become a meaningless cliche for all news that President Trump doesn't like, even and especially when it's accurate news. And yes, while there have been some media mistakes, because we are fallible and we do make mistakes, most of the stories, as far as I can tell, most of them that he's called fake news have been accurate stories. Last year, standing with the Australian Prime Minister, the President recalled his phone exchange with his Aussie counterpart, which you might remember had leaked out, and the media reporters noted that it had gotten testy. It was about whether or not some refugees would be coming to the United States as previously agreed to. The President, standing with the Prime Minister, said, "We had a great telephone call. You guys exaggerated that call. That was a big exaggeration. We're not babies. That was a little bit of fake news," unquote. Only a few hours later, at a commemoration for the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Coral Sea, President Trump said he and Turnbull, quote, had a very nice phone call, a little testy. It got a little bit testy, but that's okay, unquote. What? One fake news story, actual fake news, not Trump designated true, but he calls it fake news, came with a deranged conspiracy theory that a local DC pizzeria was actually a den of pedophilia, frequented and promoted by Hillary Clinton, her campaign chairman John Podesta, and other Democrats. Truly insane. One day in December 2016, during the transition, a 28-year-old man from North Carolina with an AR-15 wandered into that pizzeria to rescue the non-existent suffering children from the non-existent basements of the pizzeria. Thankfully, no one was hurt. That same night, Michael Flynn's son, Michael Flynn Jr., tweeted, quote, "Until Pizzagate proves to be false, it'll remain a story. The left seems to forget Podesta emails and the many coincidences tied to it," unquote. This became a news story because it was deranged, and the National Security Advisor to be's son was promoting it on Twitter. It was then pointed out in the media that Flynn Jr. had a presidential transition email, after which then Vice President-elect Pence, who was nominally in charge of the presidential transition, told Joe Scarborough on MSNBC that Flynn Jr. no longer did work for the transition. Pence then came on my show, where I confronted him with the fact that to be fair to him, I think he didn't know, that not only had Flynn Jr. been a member of the transition team had officially requested a security clearance for him, for this man who trafficked with alt-right psychos and conspiracy theorists and the like. I asked Mike Pence, Vice President-elect Pence, if he was aware of that fact. He didn't answer. I asked again. He didn't answer. You get the point. It went on for a while. That was the last time I was in the same room with Mike Pence. This is a small example of how the current fight in the battleground for ideas is being waged. One player, one general in this battle, is undercutting the very ideas of facts and truth, and his army is following him every step of the way. And you see it whether with false claims about Obama wiretapping his phones, or 3 to 5 million illegal votes. I could go on, but I know you have dinner plans. He doesn't care about facts. Every politician lies. Hillary Clinton falsely claimed the FBI director said her answers were truthful. That's not true. Barack Obama claimed if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. That wasn't true. But the sheer number of falsehoods and lies coming from this White House is staggering. Do you remember during the transition when jobless numbers would come out and the president, not during the transition, during the campaign, when jobless numbers would come out showing that unemployment was going down, and Donald Trump would talk about how they're not true. Those numbers were fake, that the Bureau of Labor Statistics made them up, that the actual unemployment rate was like 50%. I didn't make that up. You're giggling. That's true. Now, of course, those numbers are true and accurate because they benefit him because they're still going down. And it's staggering. It's challenging for all of us in the media. And what's worse is we have a situation now where prevarications are not only supported by the administration and its allies in the media, but by this entire dark army of Twitter trolls and meme creators here and abroad who work to undermine the work and the reputations of those who either oppose the president and his policies within the Republican Party or in the Congress, or those of us in the media who are attempting to provide basic nonpartisan guidance on what is true, and on occasion, what is decent. Because that's something else that we're losing. When you have somebody in a relationship, whether it's in a family or it's in a company, and that person is exhibiting behavior that degrades values, other people follow the example, not just supporters of that person, but opponents of that person. I should note, because my publisher would kill me if I didn't, that I have a novel coming out Tuesday that Aaron mentioned that touches on some of these themes. It's called The Hellfire Club. It takes place in Washington in 1954. And the only reason I mention it in this speech, other than I really hope you all go buy it, is that we have been here before. Joe McCarthy is a character in this book, and studying that history and the lies and indecencies of Joe McCarthy, and some of you are old enough to remember and most of us aren't, Republican politicians tried to straddle the worlds of Joe McCarthy and his supporters and not alienate them while also making it clear that they didn't support what Joe McCarthy was doing, but they didn't want to go out on a limb to do it. And by the way, it wasn't just Republicans, it was Democrats and the media that did that as well. There was the Senate Majority Leader in 1953 was a guy named Senator Robert Taft, a Republican of Ohio. He'd run for president and lost the primaries to Eisenhower the year before. And he thought he could straddle these worlds. He would ask reporters, why do you cover what he says? Which is what people used to say to me in 2016 when I would cover Trump. Why are you covering him? And he thought his legacy would be as this great Republican leader, Senator Taft. But then he suddenly died in 1953, and it turns out much of his legacy is he didn't stand up to Joe McCarthy. Whether in 1954 or 1972 or 1998 or today, the great discomfort here is that we want our leaders, even if we disagree with them, to be credible, decent people. And a discomfort for journalists is if a president declares war on the truth, those who try to stand by truth and decency are easily labeled partisans. I'm going to deviate from this for a second just because something happened this weekend that was unusual. There is a former aide of the president's, not when he was in the White House, but in his private company, who spoke in a New York Times story about how people close to President Trump, or who used to be close to President Trump, don't like how he's mistreating or has mistreated Michael Cohen, who everybody around Trump is now worried that Michael Cohen's going to flip. Although, of course, if there's nothing that President Trump did that is wrong, there's nothing to flip about. But the theory being that Michael Cohen will make things up. And President Trump, as is his wont, took to Twitter and attacked one of these aides, calling him I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of a drunk and a drug-addled loser. And I find it astounding that in a day and age when we are dealing with a tremendous health crisis having to do with the opioids and fentanyl, that any leader of the United States, in the United States, senator, House member, mayor, rabbi, priest, whatever, would ever describe somebody battling addiction as a loser. It is hideously offensive. President Trump has said a lot of things that I find offensive, but the two that stand out the most to me are when he said John McCain wasn't a hero because he was captured, and when he clearly mocked a disabled reporter, a reporter with a disability, and then denied he had done it. The idea that we wouldn't treat somebody who has a drug issue or an alcohol issue with compassion, the idea that a president of the United States would tweet and call that person a drug-addled, drunk loser is empirically indecent, period. And any journalist who pretends otherwise is doing a disservice to the truth. And when I think about speaking truth to power, moments from my career, I think about moments that were awkward and uncomfortable because that's what it is like to talk about these things. The human condition is not wired for conflict. Generally, we all want to get along. We might be savages beneath the veneers, but generally speaking, we try to avoid conflict. When I asked then candidate Trump if his suggesting that a judge couldn't be fair because of his heritage, and if that was not the definition of racism, that was uncomfortable. I don't know if it was speaking truth to power. I was asking a question, I wasn't speaking it, although it was pretty clear what I thought. Perhaps the moment that stands out the most to me in terms of discomfort in speaking truth to power or asking a question rooted in truth to somebody in power was one I asked to President Obama after Sandy Hook. I noted that he had made the political calculation to not talk about gun violence, to not push any attempts to remedy the clear problem we have in this country of people who shouldn't be able to get guns getting guns. And I noted that Sandy Hook was hardly the first incident of horrific gun violence of his first term, and I asked him, and I admit the question was kind of sassy, but I asked him, where have you been? He did not like that question. And a lot of progressives didn't like that question. A lot of people on the left. So I guess in my view, and in the way my brother and I were raised, in which we don't necessarily embrace the easy applause line, I would say that I hope everyone here embraces journalists and journalism who challenge what politicians have said and done, who challenge statements that are not true, who challenge actions that are not decent, and do so regardless of who is in power. Do so about Governor Brown, and do so about Senator Harris and Senator Feinstein, and do so about President Trump. Because however aberrant this presidency is, it is not as if the 43 men who held the office before him never fibbed, never did things that were indecent, or didn't deserve aggressive coverage. That's not to say this is not a unique circumstance, because it is. But I do feel for journalists, it doesn't mean I go to war with President Trump. It means I don't go to war with President Trump. It means I just point out what are the facts and what is the truth and judge behavior when it is indecent. We're not supposed to, as journalists, give in to every impulse and tweet every thought we have. We don't resort to his tactics. We rise to the occasion of this challenge. And not only does that mean we don't make the same kinds of mistakes that have marred some of the work that journalists have done in the past decades, but that we also consider the low regard that so many members of the public have for us, and that we work hard to be fair to all points of view, even to the side whose members might be attacking us and attempting to undermine us. The side, not the tactics or the people. And that means calling a lie, a smear a smear. After Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah announced he was going to be retiring early from Congress, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, a Democrat from this state, who's been lionized by the left, she went on MSNBC and said of Jason Chaffetz, with no evidence, quote, there are those who think that he in some ways has some connections to what's going on in Ukraine and perhaps in Russia itself and knows something about all of this. I don't really know. I can't say, but he's strange in the way that he's conducting himself. Maybe Chaffetz thinks that if he rolls out and points to the fact that something's going on with Flynn, that somehow this will raise Chaffetz above maybe what connections he may have with the Kremlin. We need to keep an eye on him, unquote. That's crazy. That's madness. And to point out that Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Waters, said this on the left is not to say that it's equivalent with what President Trump is saying on the right. I'm not doing a false equivalence. But irresponsible, fact-free speculation, smears, do not become less irresponsible because you like the party or because you like ultimately what the politician stands for. Now, I didn't become a journalist to be a truth squatter, to speak truth to power. I became a journalist because I wanted to tell stories that I didn't think other journalists were telling. And I wanted to have a serious discussion about the way that some people's lives were affected by policies. I didn't become a journalist to be portrayed on Saturday Night Live or to become a meme. And this is just what my face looks like. I'm not trying to make expressions. Aaron will back me on that. But we do, in the media today, find ourselves trying to stand up for basic standards of decency and truth. And it's weird, but it's important. And it's a time for all of us in the Fourth Estate, and indeed all of us in the United States of America, to stand up for what we know is right. If standing up for truth and decency is speaking truth to power, then so be it. But let's make sure that we speak it consistently to everyone in power. Daniel Webster once said, quote, "God grants liberty only to those who love it and are always ready to guard and defend it." Thank you.
And then the questions will come out.
I want to say one other thing, because we have Q&A now, so it's not ruining anything. It's so beautiful in San Francisco. Why are you inside listening to me talk? What are you doing? I guess you live here all the time.
Jake Tapper, I can't thank you enough. And some people asked me, they said, Lee, why are so many people coming to hear Jake Tapper? And I think everyone who is blessed to be here today, we know the answer. In a world that has a dearth of decency, you are a human being of decency, and you are a human being that is fair and equitable and willing to ask tough questions no matter what the party, no matter what the line is, and we applaud that. Jake, on behalf of the Swig Program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice, on behalf of the University of San Francisco and Father Fitzgerald, and on behalf of your brother, it's my pleasure to give you a little something, just a token. And you, for one, will know what this is. In the middle is a mezuzah that you find at the doorway of many Jewish homes. And in there is a teaching of the Torah about decency, about being a human being, about uplifting other people. And that mezuzah, Jake, clearly guides your life. And it's engraved with the following: Jake Tapper, for speaking truth to power and making the 40th anniversary so special. In deepest gratitude, the University of San Francisco Swig Program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice, April 22nd, 2018.
Thank you so much.
Jake?
Thank you.
So Jake, I'm going to invite you over here in a minute, but I'd like to invite, so we could have opened this up, but I think as Aaron said before, as Jake said before, with Jews, Catholics, Muslims here, people of all faiths, people of no faiths, everyone in the world would have had a question. So we selected 4 people that represent the core of our magnificent University of San Francisco: an undergraduate, a graduate, an esteemed leader of this Jewish community here in San Francisco, and a woman who serves on the board of directors of the University of San Francisco and has great values. I would like to invite Aya, Rita, Reggie, and Sarah to join us up here, please.
And you can go over here, and they'll come over there and ask questions.
Okay.
We'll do one at a time.
So why don't we, all 4 could come up, please. I want to get everybody on stage.
I just want to note, I'm going to remind all you people during the Oprah administration that you want me to ask tough questions. Okay? I'm holding you to it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because she's got some stuff to answer for about Dr. Oz. That's all I'm saying.
So the order of the questions, and you can read their bios, I don't need to say anything. They'll ask a question, Jake's going to take his time to respond, and these 4 questions are great. I was deeply moved by them, and just before I turn to Aya, I believe firmly, Jake, that questions are the foundation of democracy. Questions are the foundation of Judaism, the foundation of the Jesuit tradition, the foundations of all great religions. Questions are the foundation of a great university. And if we don't ask questions,
We don't understand the core of life. Jake, somebody I once worked for that you and I talked about said to me, Lee, the problem in the world today is we're asking all the wrong questions, and that's why we get the wrong answers. And Jake, what you do is you ask right questions, and these 4 people have some terrific questions for you. Aya, we'll start with you.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of your brothers and you. So, my question is...
So am I.
My question is, when you reflect on your career and the journey that brought you to be as successful as you are, what would you say was your highest and lowest point, and what inspired you to bounce back from your lowest point?
Oh, wow. Okay. So my highest point, there's different ways to judge that, I guess. There's the feeling of high, of being excited and feel like you had a job. All right, San Francisco, take it easy. The feeling of a high. And then there's the feeling of satisfaction, I suppose. The professional work that I'm most proud of and I think is most meaningful was the book I wrote about Afghanistan. I looked at one combat outpost built in 2006 and overrun by the Taliban in 2009. And I did a history of that outpost. I went to Afghanistan twice. I interviewed more than 200 people, and I got to know soldiers and widows and Gold Star moms and others. And I got in touch with a part of this nation that is serving and sacrificing that I have been very distant from. And I got to tell their story. And that I'm definitely the proudest of that. So we'll just make that my answer for the best moment. I've had a lot of really low moments as a journalist and professionally. I mean, first of all, and I'll just say this to you because you're young, but I think there's this idea that we're all supposed to know what we're going to do with the rest of our lives at 22 when you graduate from college, and I did not know. I didn't become a full-time journalist till 29, and there were a lot of mistakes and bad roads I took, and days that I thought of at the time were just like, oh God, I'm awake, now I have to get through another day. Nobody tells people that are about to graduate college that, like, boy, these next 2 or 3 years are going to be really bad. They're going to be really awful. Just prepare. So just know that. I mean, I hope they're not. I hope they're great. But there was a time that I moved to New York to learn how to do TV. And I did some freelance stuff for a channel, and then they didn't renew my contract when I thought that they were going to. And I just felt like, oh wow, what do I do now? And I went back to the job I previously had writing for a website called Salon.com, which is based here in San Francisco. And anyway, I got everything together. I put together a reel, and I got hired by ABC News about, within the year. But the journey from not having my contract renewed to ABC News hiring me was not a straight line, and that was really tough, and there were some dark days. But ultimately, I just had to try to keep going. And when I had interviews, to not let people know how upset I was.
Thank you.
Since we're at a university setting, I just want to say one thing, which is, I don't think that people who are grown-ups talk to young people, college students, about sufficiently about how tough it can be, and how vulnerable we can feel, and how difficult a journey it sometimes is. I mean, that's something I try to do when I give commencement addresses, is to let people know. I've given one, so. I'm about to give a second, and I will do this then too, fact checkers. But is to let people know that, boy, it can be really tough. It can be really tough, and I don't think there's anything weak about acknowledging that, and I think that grown-ups should do that more with people in college. Anyway.
Jake, a woman who's guided our community for decades as a distinguished leader, our friend Rita Semmel.
You sort of kind of answered my question before I asked it when you were speaking, but I'd like you to enlarge on it just a bit. And the question concerned objectivity. There was a time when news reporters were objective, were never able to express their own opinions. But with the growth of many news channels now, that's not the case. And I wonder how you determine when you're going to just objectively report on something or when you're going to let your own feelings and comments come to the fore.
It's a great question about objectivity and when do I share my opinions and when do I just let the facts speak for themselves. And I think a lot of journalists are struggling with this during this era because facts are being challenged. I try to make it clear that I don't have an opinion professionally about immigration reform or tax policy or trade or North Korea. I try to ask questions about those, but I don't think you can find in my reports or my reporting in general an opinion on whether the president's tax bill was a good one or an opinion on whether disrupting the way we think about trade is a bad idea or a good idea. In fact, I've said on a number of occasions that I think that President Trump suggesting that we need to rethink the way that the Borg in Washington, D.C. thinks about trade is not a bad thing. We should rethink that. Or the way the Borg in Washington, D.C., the Borg is a Star Trek term, I'm sorry. It just means like this giant unthinking creature that everyone basically has the same opinion, that there's something that goes wrong in the world and like we need to send U.S. troops there as soon as possible. Or that we should negotiate our trade deals regardless of what happens to the factories in Pennsylvania or Ohio. And I think that there has become kind of a conventional thinking about those sorts of things. And I think that there's nothing wrong with President Trump saying that we need to rethink it or renegotiate it empirically. Where I try to take a stand is just what's true and what's not true, because those things are not subject to debate. Ted Cruz's father did not conspire with Lee Harvey Oswald to kill John F. Kennedy. That's crazy. And yet, somehow, defending Ted Cruz's dad makes me a liberal to some people, which is an interesting trick. So that's where I try to draw the line. I will say, I also think it's a mistake for journalists to there are people on the left, Democrats, professional Democrats, and media critics on the left, who try to blur this so that the media is reporting about policy debates in such a way that we take the side against Trump no matter what because of everything else he's saying that is not true. And I think we need to be, in the media, needs to be very careful about that. I don't think it's appropriate for us to take a side in a policy debate about taxes. Now, you can spell out the facts of what the tax bill will do. It is factually true that most of the benefits in the tax bill went to corporate America, but it is also true that even President Obama and Democrats were also talking about lowering the tax rate for corporate America. It's important to take a stand on things that there is no debate on, facts, decency, but everything else, there should be a debate on it, and we should just allow the debate to happen, in my view. Does that make sense?
So Jake, before we continue with Reggie and Sarah and the conversation is going to change, as the moderator today, I just want to clarify one thing, if you don't mind. So it's clear to me in listening to your talk very carefully and in watching you on TV that you do take a stand, Jake, by your very being, by listening to your questions, that we are living in times that are indecent. And I watched you very carefully. You got very emotional at one part of your talk today, and that was when you referred to what had been said about Senator McCain, and we talked about the comment about people with disabilities.
are you not, in fact, taking stands about human issues when you ask those kinds of questions and speak?
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's what I mean, just to clarify, that's what I mean when I talk about taking a stand on decency. I don't think that's partisan. First of all, John McCain's a conservative Republican, and Ted Cruz is too, and I assume his dad is as well. People with drug and alcohol problems and people with disabilities run the gamut. This has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with social justice, whether it's taught in Judaism or in the Jesuit practice of Christianity. It has to do with standing up for people who need help, who need to be treated with dignity. And it's indecent. I mean, I don't think that's partisan. The aide that President Trump was attacking is a conservative Republican. You know, he knows better. This is not telling tales out of school because he's talked about it openly, and kudos to him, but Larry Kudlow, the new director, the new economic honcho at the White House, battled cocaine. He knows better. I can't imagine he's seeing that tweet and thinking good things. And to be completely candid, President Trump on the issue of addiction, up until that tweet, has been pitch perfect. He's been great in his words. And there is now more funding to combat the opioid epidemic than there has been before. But to belittle people who are dealing with a disease, whether it is spina bifida or alcoholism, is indecent. And I don't view that as a partisan thing at all.
Jake,
and by the way, no Republican should either.
I think that's why we're here today, because this is a man who reflects what so many people here believe, that we need to see more decency and humanity. Jake, a person with an incredible story, and there's a bit of his bio there, but every one of these four people and so many others at USF, we'd love you to get to know. I'd like to ask Reggie Daniels to come up for the next question.
Thank you, Jake. In appreciation to all the rabbis here, Father Fitzgerald, to Aaron, who I'm also a fan of and becoming a fan of yours pretty quickly. As a prison reform advocate, as a faculty member of the Swig Program, and as an organic thinker, I have a question for you today regarding that. And it's a good question because it refers to your hometown. And my question today is, why do you think there isn't more national attention paid to reforming the American criminal justice system, especially given the success being demonstrated in places like your hometown, Philadelphia?
It's a great question. Thank you, Reggie. I admit there are a number of stories that don't get as much coverage as they should. A lot of stories that don't get as much coverage as they should. And one of them is criminal justice reform. I have covered it. I've interviewed Senator Rand Paul about it. I did a joint interview with Senator Rand Paul and your Senator Kamala Harris about it when they introduced legislation together. We tend to cover legislation when it has a decent chance of passing, or at least it's going to come up to the floor of the House and the Senate for a vote. And we tend to time our coverage of that when the House and the Senate are about to vote on it. The media, as a general rule, especially TV media, we're reactive. We cover what the politicians are saying and doing. And I think that we will cover that more when and if it comes to the fore, and I will continue to cover it when I get opportunities to do so. But that's the best answer I have for you, is that we really do take our leads on. I mean, I try to make a point of covering some issues when I can, even if they're not being debated on the floor of the House and Senate. Criminal justice reform is one of them. Climate change is another one. The opioid epidemic is one of them. Veterans issues is another one. But the truth of the matter is that I would cover, and hunger, childhood hunger is another one. But I don't cover them as much as I would like to, and the truth of the matter is because my job, generally speaking, is to cover the news of the day, and I don't make the news, I cover the news. Does that make sense? Makes perfect sense. So, but tell Kamala Harris to do another interview with me, make a part of the deal that I have to ask at least 2 questions on criminal justice reform, and I will do it. But you need to get her to do it first, because I can't get her on my show.
Okay, I'll get on her, Jake. Thank you.
Jake, as you know so well, every human being of the 1600 today has a story, an incredible story. And our final question is from a woman of courage and represents so much to so many of us. It's my pleasure to call upon Sarah Goldman.
Good evening. How do we raise our children, whether in our homes, schools, or universities, to ask the difficult questions and to push beyond society's noise to find the truth? And possibly more importantly, how do we motivate and teach our children to follow up on the answers they receive or the unanswered questions?
Wow.
It's the last one.
That's a great question. First of all, let me just say that whatever personal attributes I have that cause me to be the kind of person that figures out what the uncomfortable question is and then persistently asks it, works better on CNN than it does in real life. Definitely better than at sorority parties in high school. I don't do it at home. I've been trained not to do that. It's a tough question because kids need to ask tough questions, but so often in grade school and high school, they're conditioned to not ask tough questions. So much of grade school and high school is about not challenging authority. Hopefully college, certainly the University of San Francisco, but hopefully college is different. I don't think that kids are taught to do that, and I think that they can get in trouble for it. I'm giving you the honest answer. But they should, even if they don't confront people with the questions, they should talk to their parents and to their friends and to their brothers and sisters about those questions. And sometimes it might be appropriate to ask them. I have a daughter who teaches me something every day. And she came home one day. We live in Washington, D.C., and half the school was divided. They divided the school, all the students, it's K through 12, into 2 groups, the Nationals and the Capitals. Those are the names of the baseball team and the hockey team, and the professional baseball and hockey teams. And my daughter came home and she said, are women allowed to be on those teams, the Nationals and the Capitals? And my wife said, no. Then why is everybody in the school have to be named after a man's baseball team or a man's hockey team? Wow, I hadn't even thought about that. And we talked to her about how to ask that question at school in such a way that she wouldn't get suspended. So I guess the point is to raise the kids to challenge what they see in front of them, but then also coach them so they ultimately, nothing bad is on their college transcript. There was a second part to your question, which was?
How do we motivate or teach our children to follow up?
I think the point is that I think I see, it is incredible to me what I see from children today. Just in terms of the way they think about things and the way they don't think about things. Race doesn't seem, I live in an area that we breathe a rarefied air, and I know that. but my children don't literally, this is going to sound horribly patriarchal and whatever, but like, I don't think my children see race the same way that my brother and I were raised to see race. I just don't think, and part of it is, I'm not saying because I'm such a great dad, because 2018 is different from 1969. So I think that there's a lot of expectation of justice from kids today that I think that fills me with hope, that I don't remember thinking when I was a child. I'm really sorry if I offended anybody with that statement. I don't mean to say there isn't a lot of injustice and that kids don't experience it. I know they do. But I just think that the kids today seem so much better than my generation did. I hope that answers the question. Do I need to apologize for that? Did I say something wrong? I hope I did not.
Before we call up Father Fitzgerald to give some concluding remarks, I just want to say one more time, thank you very much, Jacob Tapper.
My pleasure.
Father Paul. You can sit. He's got to say some words.
Wow. First of all, a deep word of gratitude to the congregation here at Emanu-El, to Beth and Jonathan and Stephen and the staff here and the community. Thank you for bringing us into this holy space. I think we can all feel the presence of the divine here in our program and in our speakers. Thank you, Kent, for representing the Swig family, which has made such a tremendous investment in the lives of our students. That first year, Rabbi, I think you had 12 students in that first class. This year, 1,000 students will go through classes in the program. Aaron, thank you so much for growing a program which is now a point of great pride for us and is a tremendous example of what USF is all about. Mr. Tapper, thank you so much. You've demonstrated certainly your intelligence, your professional integrity, but on this 36th anniversary of your bar mitzvah, I think you've also demonstrated that you are a righteous man. Thank you. Lee, myself, thank you so much for pulling this wonderful program together over the last several months. Reggie, Sarah, Aya, and Rita, thank you so much for leading us in some thoughtful conversation. Hans Kung, a Swiss Roman Catholic theologian, once said that there can be no peace among the nations until there is peace among the religions. Melvin Swig made an investment, a tremendous investment, 40 years ago, to found the first Center for Jewish Studies at a Catholic university on the planet in order to plant this seed, which is now sprouted and allows us now at the University of San Francisco, where our Muslim Student Association and our Hillel can do joint projects and programs together, where our students from all the great traditions can sit in a classroom and not only learn together, but can imagine a far better world, a peaceful world, a world of shalom. The Swig Center has been a tremendous benefit for our 2% of our students who are Jewish, a larger percentage of our students who have a Jewish parent or a Jewish grandparent. Our students for whom Judaism is a much further back, but a part of their ancestry and heritage as well. An interdisciplinary and a multidisciplinary study of the unique insights and the deep wisdom of the many Judaisms. You can buy Aaron's most recent book on the many Judaisms that enrich humankind. This truth is powerful. All truth is powerful. A Jewish studies program at a Jesuit university, especially a university like the University of San Francisco, is based on a 450-year Jesuit tradition of education a tradition of crossing borders, crossing boundaries in order to discover God who's already on the other side, God who's already at work in the other community, and then to be enriched by that discovery. God already present in the new culture encountered. Ignatius of Loyola, when he founded the Jesuits, before he founded the Jesuits, as a young man, took a boat and went to Israel as a very young man to dialogue, to meet. Yes, he wanted to kind of walk where Jesus had walked, but he also wanted to meet and be in that holy land. Francis Xavier, one of the first Jesuits, went to India. Matteo Ricci goes to China. Alexander de Rhodes to Vietnam. And all of these early Jesuits are going not to bring truth, but to encounter truth that's already there and present. Seeking and finding God in all things is the heart of a Jesuit educational approach. Finding God in all persons, finding God in all traditions. Our commitment to providing an education for our students that unlocks their passion and kindles a lifelong thirst for social justice, and a justice that seeks justice for all, but a justice that is a preferential option for the least powerful and the most vulnerable. The Swig Program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice does exactly this. And if USF's tagline is to change the world from here, maybe with that sense of tikkun olam, we would say that we are going to heal the world from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for joining us. Go out and ask questions. Go out and make this world better. Thanks so much.